What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Rising Sun podcast. I'm Dean Howell. Hey, listen, guys, I'm not even going to get into sponsors or partners or friends of the show today because I really just want to jump to the episode. I'm blessed and was lucky enough to have Tait Fletcher on. If you don't know who Tait is, he's an actor and an executive. So you're probably familiar with Jumangi, Welcome to the Jungle, Breaking Bad, and Westworld, but also most recently on The Mandalorian. So fought in the UFC. He was on season 3 of The Ultimate Fighter. Again, just an awesome human being. And I think that you guys are really going to enjoy listening to his perspective on life and the conversation that we had, because it went pretty fucking deep, man. So without further ado, and without boring you with the sound of my voice, Tait Fletcher. What's going on, Tait? How you doing, man? Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Good to be here, man. Thanks, Dean.
Right on. So you're on the Mountain Standard Time. Where are you exactly? I don't even know, man.
I'm up in the mountains of Santa Fe, New Mexico.
New Mexico, nice,
Yeah,
man.
we're about 7,000 feet, something like that, and it's 95 degrees right now, and blistering, and we're waiting on the monsoons to come.
So 95 during the day. Does it get pretty cool at night still, like in the summer, or is it still pretty hot?
It stays. It get down to maybe 75 last night.
Okay, so like hoodie, maybe a hoodie if you feel like it. Yeah, it's still hot. Yeah. Right on, man. So New Mexico, how'd you find yourself in New Mexico?
Originally, I came out here in '91, and there was a great books program at a college called St. John's, which kind of studies classical literature of the Western Hemisphere from kind of beginning of Greek and follows it through to early Americana, like Thomas Paine kind of novelists and people like that. And that's what originally brought me out here.
So you've been there for a while then?
Yeah. On and off. I moved out. I was up in Portland for about 6 months, and then went back to Michigan and stayed there for a little while in like, I don't know, 96, 97, somewhere like that. And then I moved back out here
Nice.
shortly after that. And I've been here kind of on and off since then. On and off being, whenever work calls, I'm somewhere else. And I kept a place in Los Angeles for a lot of years and kind of bounced back and forth just because of the film business and all that. And but then I've been here now regularly since like 2020 when everything kind of tipped off. I had a bad brain injury in 2019, and when things started to get loud and chaotic kind of around Los Angeles, I was like, I don't think that I want to be here for this. And I came back up to the mountains and just kind of healed up here.
I love it. So I want to get to that, man. So I kind of always kick my episodes off like this, Tait. I don't know, man. Like, I'm one of the most curious people about people that I know. I'm sure there's lots of us out there, but I'm just always curious about where you started, right? So I always ask about your origin story, like how'd you grow up, where you from, like what was your family situation like, because I just feel like that informs so much about, the older we get, but also like it there without fail, however many people I've talked to at this point, like their childhood does not translate to who they are now necessarily. Like there's something that from their childhood, their adolescence, their high school, college, that they had to overcome to become the person that they are now, right? So if you don't mind, man, I'd love for you to share with us kind of like the Tait Fletcher origin story.
I grew up in northern Michigan, up on the shore Lake Huron, a town called Alpena. And yeah, it's interesting. I think that it dictates everything who you are. I think that I wonder if there's a conversation out there where you could make an argument that people can't buck what they were, in as much as you've got imprints that happen when you're young, and those things kind of dictate what your road is, whether you know it or not, I think. And so inside of that, I think I kind of became a protector and looked towards a calling that was outside of what the norm was. I saw a lot of people that would jump on a bandwagon, and the bandwagon always looked sour to me. whether that was religion or different parts of community or whatever. And so I was kind of always an individualist in that way, and an underdog shooter, and looking for ways to protect those that didn't have a voice. And I think that comes from probably early traumas in my life. I think that, when I look at most fighters of any kind, and you start to really dig in, if you can get honest looks and you can get past blind spots about your life, it's kind of obvious of why you became how you became. And yeah, there's things that maybe you transcend and do other things, but I think that conversation is more like there's things that are expected of you, and there's things that your people maybe expect of you, and whether that's changing your diet or changing your life, you've got to buck that system, because no matter what, if anybody's ever tried to do any kind of formulative change in their life, they've come against resistance from people that are closest to them. And, if you're an alcoholic and you're trying not to drink, and people be like, we could just drink one. What, the same people that are like, why are you drinking? Like, why do you drink like that? You shouldn't drink like those same people will go to destroy your life without thinking that they are, right? So there's those kinds of ways of which you got to defend yourself against old ideas, maybe, or something like that. But, yeah, my childhood is, my mom lives out here now with me. Her and my pops got split up when maybe like 29 years ago or something like that.
Right.
And I just got back from Michigan, went and saw him. And he's 79 years old. And those are relationships, as far as life goes and all that, me and my dad were separated for a long time, and in a lot of different ways. And I think that everything in my life now has come back to, like, how do you heal all those imprints of your life before people go, and that's kind of been what the second half of my life has been about, Dude told me a long time ago, he goes, you grow up and you kind of got your back against the wall and your fists up and you're like fucking just taking life on as it comes.
Yep.
And that's a perspective to take. That's a position, right? That a lot of people understand and all that. And it works for a while. I think all these things become survival tools, right? But he says, I'd love you to consider that the only people you got to get even with are folks that have helped you. And it'll change the perspective of your whole life, and it did. And so that's kind of like where I like to put my focus at, is like, how do I pay back those folks that helped me when I was nothing, when I wasn't a good bet? And a lot of that is just, reaching out behind you, and how do you help the guy coming behind you? How do you, if you got some leverage, how can you be helpful to those that are in need? Because I think that even folks you find most distasteful, the only thing about them is their traumas, their ways that they're dealing with their life is a thing that butts up against yours in some way. And if they were well, there would be no problem. And so, when I think about people like that, I get a more allowance for folks, and I get more in the position of where maybe I could be a ear that could listen, and maybe a guidepost that could point a different direction, maybe.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Tait. So this is why I wanted to talk to you, right? Because I just already am thinking about some things that I want to hear your insight on. And one of them is, like, if you talk about those people that you're close to, whether it's your father and, you were estranged for a while, same thing for me for several years after the divorce. And then we ended up like getting real close. And unfortunately, he passed a couple of years ago. He was 89, though, lived a full life.
Right on.
But like sometimes, like let's say with my mother, I've been on active duty in the military now for 22 years, and I've spent most of it in Japan. And I have this deep like yearning as I see this military career coming to an end to like go home and like make sure that I'm there with her for the rest of the time. And it's not even a guilt thing. It's like I want to be there. But there's this other part of me that's like, I've become this person over the last 22 years. And like, I go back to being the guy that was 21 that joined the military when I go back home. That's who they know. I've been gone for so long. And so like it's kind of juxtaposed, right? Like I want to make sure that I'm close to those people. By the way, yeah, is there trauma there? I mean, I had a good life, man. I can't complain. I was poor, but whatever. Like I had good parents.
Nobody gets out of the motherfucker unscathed. You know what I mean?
You know what I'm saying?
Like,
right.
Yeah.
But I guess my question is like, how do you manage like knowing who you are and remembering who you were and merging those two things. Does that make sense?
Totally. 100%. I think that, I mean, it's one of those things where they're like, there's all those old kind of parables about you got to kill your father to become a man, right?
Right.
And that kind of a thing. And well, what does that mean? Does that mean I go and cut throats? Like, obviously not. You know what I mean? But I've got to kill the ideas of who am I in a shadow of, or something like that. Of what are these preconceived ideas about who I am or supposed to be? And I think I don't have any. I mean, I sure don't have any answers to any questions, except like for my experience is what I can give, and I think I needed to leave. Just I think most people. I think it's the healthiest thing you could do is to leave the place that you grew up.
Right. Yep.
Especially when you're a young man, when you're in your teens and 20s, to go somewhere else and have to rely on other people that are strangers, and it kind of cuts out that sense about like territory and things like that, and the inability to go and learn how to cohabitate and cooperate with other people. You can see it in folks, and you can see it in folks that don't do it. They're like, "Where are you from? What are you doing in here?" You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
You can see it in young men everywhere of how it gets expressed in different ways. And so, for me, going out and going to become myself where nobody knew me was really important, because it's trying to have a new life. And when you want to change your life, it's very hard if you've made an impact as somebody else, right? And you're trying to walk different. It takes years for that to happen. And I think that that's what happened with me and my father, is that it took years for him to believe in that change. And he had to see it reflected from other people going, God, you see what Tait's up to now? And all of that. And there's a different kind of allowance that happened inside of that. So I would consider that, like, you literally can't be that kid that was 21, 22 years old that left for the military. You know what I mean? And what you've done, I think when you do go home, when I go home, it's like a warrior coming back from touring in East Asia or whatever. And they come back to their camp, and they're like, the Mongols are like, well, what was it like? Or what was it? You know what I mean? And it's, you've lived a different life. And I think that it goes to, I don't know, that there's an Einstein quote I've been kicking around lately that goes, the greatest illusion of humanity is that there's more than one of us.
Mm.
And that idea of this singular soul that we're all interconnected by, this tether, maybe the Catholics, maybe the Christians call it like the Holy Spirit or something like that. My Buddhist friend is a surfer, and he talks about the waves, and he goes, I'm all 100% God.
I know all about that feeling. There's nothing like
just
it.
Like the wave is 100% water.
Right.
But it ain't all the water that there is. There's something massive about the totality of it. And that's where the power is. And maybe that's what this God field is, what I would think of as a higher power is all of these souls in this unified structure. Maybe that's what it is. I'm not sure. It's a mystery I can't put a name to. But I think that when we come home in that way, people are like, where were your feet? What was that like? You know what I mean? And we grow in that way, and we break off those old kind of shells of who we were to become who we're going to be. And I think the biggest thing about experience is that we go out and we help guys behind us. We help ring the bell, as it were, of like what it looks like, and what's safe, what's not safe, and what here's my route, here's what I wish I'd have done. And there's those guys that do that. They go out and do that. And then there's other people that are like, for whatever reason, I had to play it safe. And man, I took the job as the accountant, or I'm the grocer down the road or whatever, because my dad was doing it, and then they didn't want to lose the shop. I mean, my dad, that's his story. You know what I mean? His dad got a stroke, and he had to come back and take care of the family business. What is he going to do? His dad put him through college and all that. He's going to answer the call. And so, not that it's good or bad or anything, but in that way, I think we all hold each other down. I hope that there's a cooperation between us instead of this fierce competition. I think, the best way I ever heard it is, I mean, I relate to everything through violence in a way. I mean, it's a lot of how I grew up, and it's a lot of like what formed me with discipline through mixed martial arts, and I fought with a group called the Dog Brothers, which was a stick fighting group back in the day. And they had a credo that said higher consciousness through harder contact. You got to really understand which self it is you're defending when you got a stick whizzing by your head,
Right.
And And the idea being that we're going to come and we're going to crash against each other. You know, it was like being at a dance. Like, hey, do you want to fight next? And you just ask somebody to be your next dance partner. Then you go out in the middle of the park and there's people all surrounded drinking beers watching you, and there's like 15 or 20 of us that are there to fight. And we're not there out of malice or anything like that. We're there to hone the tribe so that we all get a little better and we all can grow a little bit, right?
Yeah.
There was a guy that was so good that everybody thought he was doing pretty good against him. It's like that kind of a feeling, right? He would fight to whatever level you were at and be just above your edge so you could rise, you know? And I think that's the point of a society. And so I think that's the thing about going out and coming home. I think that's a thing that can be offered. And I also think that's the thing that's getting corroded in society. I think the powers that be know that, and they want to put people at odds with each other. And I think that communication and that kind of kindness of like, well, why is violence important? Well, it's important because if I'm good at it, I don't have to manifest it, right? It's already known. And if I know that that's a trump card that I can pull, I'm not afraid of it either. And I can protect the folks around me. And so I think this thing about being a good citizen is traveling, is going out, is understanding literature and mythology, and being able to use your body in a physical way that's helpful to your community, you know?
Yeah.
I think all that stuff is what you're going to bring home, you know? And you'll bring home a duty to your blood of like, you know, you're going to walk somebody home. And fuck, man, there's nothing more honorable than that.
Yeah. I think there's something real romantic about it. And trust me, I think about it a lot. And, you know, just this idea, I mean, you know, everybody's seen Gladiator, right? And he's home and he's touching the wheat in the fields, and he was dead, but he had returned home. That was a symbolism, right? And I think there's something to that, man. Like, you know, but there's this kind of like, until you, like, I know how good I am at certain things. I have a skill set. It's mainly leadership. You put me in front of 10 or 1,000 people and you want to get some shit done, like I'm your guy, right? Which is a very valuable skill set. But I kind of want to be like Thanos in the fucking garden, man. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of want to like just chill, grow a garden, have some goats, and influence the people that, you know, that are around me, right? Like, I don't need this huge kind of like envelope of influence once I'm done with this, because I've had that for 20 years, you know? And so it's just one of those things that I kind of work through, and I talk to anybody that I can to shed some light on it, right? I will say this though.
It reminds me of,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
So I've lived in Japan for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And so I've really absorbed this culture. And it's the most respectful and orderly and harmonious culture I've ever seen. I've been everywhere in Southeast Asia. I mean, you name it, from Thailand to Australia and Malaysia and Hong Kong and everywhere in between. And there's something about this Japanese culture that everybody is willing to lend a helping hand, but there's this social contract that I think is rooted in Buddhist faith, but also Shinto, which was their earlier religion. And so like, it's like we're talking about, my ability to take that experience and bring it back home is something I look forward to, but also, you know, it kind of makes you nervous. It's like, it challenges that Judeo-Christian kind of way of looking at things. You know what I'm saying?
I think I mean, you know, when you're fractured or you're at a crossroads, there's a reductive quality to that. And things aren't maybe you reduce just to your breath because you're injured so badly. And that's all you got, is to be able to watch one breath go out and another breath come in, and that's all you've got. And maybe there's just pain besides that, whatever. Inability to participate. But you can grow from there. There's a place to go from there. And this thing about being broken in whatever way, whether it's brokenhearted, whether it's I lost a family member, whether it's my job, I aged out of my job, right? You're a fighter. You can only do that so long. You're a football player. And it's cold in the dark when the lights go out. Who are you now? And there's that thing about a man. It's like when you come of age, well, who are you now? And you're like, I'm something, and you don't have any footprints behind you, got no experience, and you know it, but God damn it, you're trying to stand up straight, and you're trying to, you're hoping you choose the right course and all, but those parts of your life pass, right? You become something, you become whatever, however you're walking. And, the next part of your life, you'll become another thing, and it'll be scary because the other thing I'm used to being a leader. I'm used to, you're used to who you are now. And so who knows what that next thing is? And for me, whenever I've tried to force anything, I step on toes, whether it's a business or whatever, I've been overly ambitious and I'm pushing things around. And if only, man, then this is better for everybody. And can't you see? And I cause chaos. I cause chaos, man. When I'm over here preaching about cohesion, right?
Right.
And whether that's in matters the heart or business or whatever. And so I gotta, what's the point of having faith? Why would I look towards that? Well, because when I push it around, I get stinky results, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I can get a job done, but if the stakes aren't high and the consequences aren't there where it really needs to happen, is it worth the rub? People are just trying to live. And so I've been the last couple of years anyway, I've been trying to, be in this thing of the unfold and going, God, universe, whatever, let you let this unfold because you'll unfold it better than I will. And if I choose something, I'll probably get that. I think that's how the universe works. But I'll rob myself of all the infinite possibility of what the beauty of it could be by choosing A, B, or C, right? And if I just live in the unfold and I can be present, it's like the Taoists would talk about that. Those guys, someone would live to 120, 130 years old. And they'd ask them, how do you do that? What is this about? And they talked about they live in the infinity of the moment, right? This endless moment.
Beautiful. And
so how do I get into that and just let it unfold and trust, and please God, give me the legs to carry it tomorrow, whatever the weight is.
Yeah.
And I think it's like that. I mean, my problem with Christianity, or I don't want to even say a problem, but a lot of the things come up and I think everybody wants to know the answer. Everybody wants the outcome. I asked this old dude, this teacher of mine, and I said, man, you got to know the answer to that, Michael. What do you think? And he goes, Tait, whenever I got an answer, now I got ground I got to defend. People want to push into that.
Right.
Because I got questions and the world opens up. And I thought, man, that's a nice position to take. And I think there's different times in your life that you got to take different positions. There's a lot of times where you got to have a firm answer. And you got to have Dean got to come up against me and we're going to butt heads and we're going to find out about it. And maybe we'll get a better answer out of that. And I think that's what happens when that happens a lot of the time. But I think that's certain parts of life and that's for certain problems. And so this thing about a faith and letting it unfold of like, right now we're in a writer's strike and we're in a union strike in my business. And everybody's like, oh, you're striking. And I'm like, no, I'm just part of a thing that's, striking. And it looks like pageantry to me, a lot of it. And also it looks like you're trying to, a lot of it's about AI and stuff. And I'm like, you're trying to put a genie back in a bottle and that it's a wrap. Like it's what it is, But, so then the question, a friend of mine says, well, what are you going to do next? What happens? And I go, I don't know. But the fact is that every road that I've been on, I've been taken care of. If I really get honest about it and reductive about it, I've been fed and I've been clothed and I got a roof over my head. And so I just want to be useful to those around me. And if that's my position, that'll come up. The next thing that I'm supposed to do will come up. And I don't have to worry about that. And that takes a lot of weight off of me. I don't need to conspire to make this thing work. Man, I'm just here to be useful to folks. And however that looks, is how it looks, I mean, my dad's 79 years old right now. And we went out for the last 5 days and we're building roads in the woods at hunting camp and dragging 10-foot logs out. He's on the front end loader. He's picking them up. We're loading them up and I'm unloading. And we're doing that. We go out, shoot clay pigeons. He hits 96 out of 100. And then he teaches sailing to kids. And so there's all these little boats that the city has. And he's got 15, 20 kids that are out there and we go set a course and these kids are sailing. They're 13, 14 years old, skippering these boats.
Yeah.
And it's like, I look at that, man. And I look at, for anything that I ever had that I was like rubbed wrong about my dad, it's like he showed me how to live in a life of service and a life of kindness and utility. And if it didn't have function or performance, he wasn't into it, but if it did, man, he's about that. And let's look into that more. And let's see how we could get more juice for the squeeze. And I'd like to be that, I'd like to be that for whatever my community is. And so that's where I'm trying to walk in it with. And I think that, for a guy like you, that'll be a thing that's just self-evident. I mean, you come up, you're so useful. You got so many skill sets that it goes into that. I think it was in Iceland or somewhere back, like the Vikings, when they would have war, they'd have a war leader. Right. And then after the war, they would exile that dude and put him like 20 miles outside of town, go live on your farm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we don't need a war leader in a time. That's not a good leader to have at that time, right?
That's right.
And also it's like the natural way of
adage, right? That old adage, I'd rather be, I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war zone, right? I mean, it's the truth, Yeah.
And it's great to have the ability to pick up the call for either way, if something, you're an autonomous man, you're as free as a man can be in that regard. I was reading a thing the other day about somebody was talking about they're walking through Koreatown and they're taking pictures for some project they're doing or whatever. They're like, and then somebody that we're sure is a gangbanger rides up on a bike. Give me your camera. What are you doing here? Get out of here. Da, 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 and all this stuff. And then talks about them kind of stalking them as they go all the way home and all that. And what do you think I should do? And I was like, you should learn how to stand up for yourself. I mean,
there you go.
You know what I mean? It's like, were you never on a playground? And where did you think somebody was going to come and save you? And so I think that's the biggest thing. I think that, for guys like us to show people down the road is like, man, if you want to be a free person, because that looks different now, right? We're from the skin world. Well, if you're in the digital world, it looks like you should call up whomever to come and help you, because that's what they're telling you. And they're telling you if somebody hurts your feelings, you should be able to take their job away. And you should be, I mean, it's like, it's an amazing softening of the character of humans, and in a way that isn't sustainable. And so to listen to those messages, which abound, is dangerous. And I think it's good to offer another voice. And now I'll say that when I was a kid too, man, like I said, common people that were just doing common shit, that were the common mob that would jump on a bad idea and run with it, I was never into. Yeah. And still the same now, and I would say to anybody, just strive to be uncommon. It's easy. It's easy.
I was having this conversation with my daughter last night. We were sitting on the back porch, just having a conversation. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, that conversation went toward potential conflict with China, what that would look like. Will we evacuate them? Where are we going to live? You'll be in Texas. And like, I'll tell you that story to kind of get to this point, that like we had the conversation about, like, you have to be able to defend yourself. If things go really sideways, don't worry, I've got a plan, but it's not going to be easy. And let me explain to you some of these things that are going to challenge you, because, I'll say this, like, I've raised my kids to be, to be able to take care of themselves. 3 beautiful girls, but they don't take shit from nobody. Right. And, but this idea of like really truly having to defend yourself in a time of like conflict or crisis, I think a lot of people don't like, they call us, they call you a prepper or this, that, and the third thing, but it's like, no, like that's kind of like a basic human thing, is that you're able to take care of yourself, whether that's food, self-defense, whatever,
I used to work in clubs back in the day, and people would, they look at you a certain way. You're brutish, you're unintelligent, like all the things or whatever. But man, the one dude that was the loudest proponent of all that, like when he's getting beat up by 3 dudes down the street and I'm walking home from work, he was happy as hell to see me. You know what I mean? Because I'm the dude that could take care of the situation and did.
Right.
And I would rather be that guy that's kind of looked askance by people that are like that than be a guy that is impotent to be able to be useful to the people around me. Because I can't stand by and watch that. It's just not in me.
Yeah, for
sure, I think the biggest thing too about safety, and safety of kids, I just ran into I was at the gym earlier and ran into this girl I hadn't seen in a long time. And and she starts talking, and she's got a voice of a little girl, right? And she's a woman, right? And generally, that's when people have been hurt by somebody when they were that age, and something horrible has happened, right? And then, you know about people's relationships as they go on, and they're treated in a way that maybe isn't the best way throughout the rest of their relationships, because they're imprinted with this garbage early on, right?
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing, is like where safety starts is making people feel like they're loved and that they're safe, and making them that way. And I think that's the beginning part, because otherwise, why would I defend myself? Right. And I know men that, I mean, one of my best friends that helped me in my life so much is talking to today. And he's like, man, it's just easy, you know, and he's at the end of a career and all these things. And he's 54, and he's like, why would I go on? And this and that. I go, because the why you don't want to is because you haven't been paying attention to wanting to build a life that you want to defend. If you don't, I mean, it's on you to build a life that you think is awesome. Because after the job ends, or after the whatever ends, what's left? You know, and it's not just like, oh, I just go and do X, Y, or Z. It's like, it's got to be kind of intentional, or else you can get lost in the depression and sadness of life all the time. I mean, people often, why do kids get leukemia? Why is there sex trafficking? Why is there earthquakes? Why, if there's a God, why all this? We don't deserve all that. Well, we don't deserve sunsets and kisses from puppies and true love, and we don't deserve any of it. It's just life is what it is. And so I think the thing is like, how do we make us as a people most resilient and competent to answer the call? Because you can't make them safe. There's no nerfing the world, but you can make people able, and you can make them useful. And I think that's the call for us. I think that's what to do. You know, I think that's why your podcast, I think that's why podcasts in general are important, because you get this, you know, an ulterior view to what is just out there in mainstream, getting pumped down your neck all the time, whether it's through advertisements for cars or for whatever. I mean, it's the strangest kind of thing that we're in, where they can subvert your whole mind just with media. Like, it's never been. And that's the thing. If you're born into it, you don't know that.
Right.
Because it's never not been that. For us, it's like, this is
we're like,
repugnant.
whoa, like, man, like, why are there so many flashy lights on this commercial? Like, I see what you're trying to do. Like, pump the brakes, you know?
It's why they sell you drugs, right? I mean, ever since Big Pharma started, and like, they don't let any other country in the world sell drugs on TV like they do in America, right?
Absolutely.
And then here's the thing, and we give you the list. Here's the caveat: we're going to sell you this pill, but it'll give you all this other things, and maybe death. And we say it so fast that you're just numb to it, and like, it's an insanity that we're in, as if we're not able to find our own health, you know, and nobody looks towards that. Nobody's talking about that in mainstream media. You've got to go to these kinds of venues to find out. You got to listen to Joe Rogan or you know, Peter Thiel or Tim Ferriss or something, to go, here's a way how to hijack your life away from, you know, you got to pirate your life back. You got to rip it away from consumers, or from a consumer way, from these advertisers, because they're stealing our attention everywhere they go. And then they're formulating our ideas in that, which is weird. It's going to get so weird, I think, with AI and all. It's going to get really fucking
man.
weird.
I mean, I will say this. Maybe look, I am not a no technology guy, but one thing I'm really excited for is augmented reality. I don't care about VR, but if I put on some glasses and see fucking Pokemon jumping around everywhere, like, I'm actually kind of stoked for that. Like, I think it'll be fun. Right now, it's going to devolve into fucking advertisements, you know.
Not only that, but it devolves into propaganda right away. I mean, the very first film ever made, I'm in the film business. It's like, basically you work for the CIA as a propaganda machine if you're in Hollywood, right? It's just what it is. Right. And you think about VR goggles, you think about, now I have your 100% full attention. Right. I can put subliminal, I could do whatever I want.
That's a fact. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, and it looks fun. It looks like a game. Yeah. You know, right now people are bitching, right? In my business, writers and actors and directors and all that. And they're saying, you know, these are, what the studios are doing is horrible, and they're not treating us right, and et cetera, et cetera. But I bet 80% of those people still are paying for all their streaming services. It's like, we're caught into a place where it's so comfortable. We don't want to take our comforts away. So we will pay for our own enslavement. We will fund our own enslavement against the devils that we are striking against. It's insane.
It really is.
And that's the way people are.
Yeah. That's why I think podcasts are so good, because, like, you know, there is no budget for the Rising Sun podcast, right? Except
Right.
for what's out of my wallet. And so it does two things. I think whatever the size of your audience is, my audience, they get to hear from you, right? But the other thing that it does is it allows people like you and I to flesh out these ideas.
Yes.
Right? Because, it's rare that you sit down and have a conversation like this with someone that's not in your immediate circle.
Mm-hmm.
Like I may have this conversation with my wife. I may have a long form conversation with a friend of mine that works with me. But the ability to have like these kind of conversations with people that are outside of our immediate circle and flesh out these ideas, I think that's one of the most important things about this venue. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it's what used to be about America in as much as like, if you're a union guy working for United Auto Workers or something like that, you got a certain viewpoint of what's important in the government and this and that. But then if you talk to an artist or an engineer or something, you might go, ooh, they got really good reasons for not being it. Oh, okay. And so then you get to see like, well, what's best for the common good of everybody? What's the best course to take? And that kind of nuance is nearly erased as far as I can see. Except in venues, in avenues like this, we don't have those discussions where we can allow where maybe everybody can have different ideas, but nobody has to be wrong. Everybody just has their perspective of why and nobody's wrong. It's just, I could totally see why you would think that. But also both things can be true, even if they look oppositional. But most people are, we lose the nuance of language. We lose the nuance of critical thinking when we are so polarized, which is what's been happening. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, man. Hey, so your fighting career, walk me through that, Tait. So I'm kind of familiar, but not as familiar as I probably should be. I don't do a lot of homework for these. Sorry, guys. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to learn from you rather than reading it on the fucking internet.
Yeah, I don't know what the internet says. I got into fighting because I wanted to have. I wanted to see what was what. I wanted to see under these conditions, who are you? Who shows up? And so the first guy that really got me into any kind of organized fighting, and I thought I was tough, right? I swear I did. And and I've been places, I've been locked up, I've been, and I've been through it, and I thought I was tougher than the average bear. And then the first guy I met that showed me that I wasn't very tough was about 150 pounds. His name was Alberto Crane, and he was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu at the time, and he'd just come back from Belo Horizonte, Brazil. He won a state championship down there, and he was a real fierce competitive athlete. And he was little, and he armbarred me the same arm 5 times in under a minute or something like that. And I was, I don't know, 260 at the time. I was on top of him. There's nothing that made sense about it to me. How, and I didn't even know I was in trouble the first couple times, right? And so that got me super interested. And I go, I got to find out more. You can do 2 things at that point. You can go rolling around on the floor with a guy, that's gay. Whatever, I'm out of here. Or you can go, I got to know more. I'm curious about this, right? Like, how's this happen? And so thank God I went that route. I was always kind of open-minded and curious. And so I looked into that. And the place we were rolling was a guy named Arlen Sanford's. He had a garage that was all contained, no windows. And so in the winter, we had a wood stove in there. It would suck all the oxygen out of there. So we're already 7,000 feet in the air. And it's a battle to breathe. And adobe walls. So we're rolling and your feet against the wall, all the skin's off the top of your foot. It was like those conditions, and it was dope. And so Arlen was a founding member of the Dog Brothers stick fighting crew. And they called him Salty Dog. And he trained me and my friend Isaac Valley Flag how to stick fight, mainly because he wanted somebody to stick fight. He loves stick fighting, and it's hard to get people to buy into something like that, like getting whacked with a stick. Yeah. And so we trained with him nonstop, and as that grew, I became a real fierce competitive jiu-jitsu athlete, submission wrestling. I would go to every tournament. Met Greg Jackson back then. It's probably 98, probably 97. And and that's when I first met Keith Jardine, who is my partner in a coffee company now, and
Yep.
great movie writer and director. Just won a bunch of awards for a film that we put together a couple years ago. And so we were all just young and hungry and looking to see what it's like under these conditions. Who shows up? Who are you like this?
Yep.
And what's your skill set? And we all kind of had a chip on, we want to put New Mexico on the map,
Mm-hmm.
And so we would go to Grappler's Quest deep, 50 people deep, and we would go take team medals and shit home, and there's big rivalries back then, and but everybody was there too. Marvin Eastman's there, Chuck Liddell, like everybody. Frank Mir was a blue belt at the time. Like we fought in tournaments against each other. Like it was all of that, and it was a magical time in that way. BJ Penn and his brother JD Penn, and there's everybody, a who's who of champions of today.
I love it.
Of heroes, really, of legends, and so that's kind of where I started. And then cage fighting came up because the UFC was kind of dark for a few years in the late 90s, early 2000s. SEG was the company that owned it. They went out of business. And Dana White was a amateur boxer and a promoter that then became an agent or manager for Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell. Right. And so he wrote their first contracts against the UFC. And so they had the best contracts going, those two guys that hated each other. And then Dana talked in down the road, like a couple years later, talked to Fertitta brothers, who are like born billionaires that own the Frontier casinos and all that. And like Oda Zuffa, if Zuffa is this big, the UFC is like this big. It was just a smidgen of it, right? It was like not their thing. And Dana just turned that thing into the billion-dollar industry that it is, and is really he's phenomenal in that way. And gave a lot of guys a chance to showcase their stuff when he brought the Spike show on TV. Spike was you think about startup companies, Spike was a startup television channel. Absolutely. And so because nobody else was going to take a risk on the UFC, like they called it a blood sport. They called it human cockfighting. Budweiser had a big campaign against it. They hated it. Because it was going against boxing, because they were the main sponsor for WBO and NBA boxing. And so anyway, there's all that. But inside of that, we were fighting on reservations out here all the time because you could fight on reservations. And so we would go to all these different fights, and that's where we all cut our teeth. Diego, Carlos Condit, everybody, all of us. Alberto Crane, also the guy that armbarred me a bunch of times. He fought Javi Vasquez, won a title for King of the Cage back then. But it was like, for me, it was an expression of like, who are you under these conditions? You got people in the room. Your mom is here. You got guys that are dying for you to lose, that hate you. There's people that are students that need you to win, that are teammates of yours. There's all of it. And can you perform under these conditions? Who are you now? What's your discipline like? It's like, I was just listening to a friend of mine, a native guy, and he was talking about when he was a kid and they'd do sweat lodges. And that his dad was a kind of a brutal dude, and like he's a disciplinarian. And he's like, says, I remember my uncle was like, oh my God, I can't breathe. I got to get out. He goes, yes, you can. And he wouldn't let him out. And he just puts more steam on the fire. Right. And the thing is how to control yourself. Can you hold your mud underneath, dark and uncomfortable positions? And I think there's a huge asset in that, and there's a part of it that looks like torture. But like I was a willing participant in that torture. I mean, I think guys that go into a lot of work like you're doing, like there's guys that understand the asset in that, and they go, I want to see who I am under this. I want to be in the fiercest kind of positions and see if I don't want to break. I'm not going to break no matter what kind of force gets. And there's a certain guy that's like that, and that's just kind of where I was. And that's kind of what fighting was like for me. And then in those days it's like it was hard to find a fight, and then guys would back out of a fight. I remember one fight I took, it was a 205 fight, and that's part of the fight is the weight cut. And this guy was like, yeah, I'll be there at 205. And I looked him up on the internet like 2 weeks before, and I was like, he just fought at 275 a month ago. And it was like that, right? And the promoter's like, no, it'll be fine, because promoters are kind of dirtbags, mostly. Yeah. And he said, it'll be fine. And he said he's 230 now, and he's cutting out. Anyway, the guy comes in at 250 or something like the week before the fight. I go, there's no way he's going to do. He goes, what are you going to do? I go, we're in my hometown. I'm going to fight him. and
Yeah.
I don't care what it is, and I'll stop cutting weight. I was, 213 or something by the time I stopped cutting weight, and he's 200 and I don't know 40 pounds or something, and
Yeah.
whatever, and I triangled him and finished him in the second round, I think. But it was like that. It was like Old West gunsling days, and
Right.
so there's all that, and then I ended up on the Ultimate Fighter on I think the third season. We all tried out for the second season. Keith and Rashad went there. It was the heavyweight season, and then I went on the light heavyweight. Mike Bisping won that season. And during that, I was like, the only people that last in this are the ring girls and the referees. And I'm seeing this rapid turnover of careers, right? And I turned 35 when I was in the Ultimate Fighter house, which I was just trying, I was like at a late age, I guess, maybe for it, but like I wanted to be able to do my thing, you know what I mean? And so I ran after that for a while, and then you just age out of the thing, and then you go, okay, who are you now? And I started teaching, and I had a school after that, and it still runs. I got a 10th Planet school here in Santa Fe.
Nice.
A CrossFit gym called Undisputed Fitness. And both those things still run. Friends of mine, one of my black belts runs the jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. It's a Bang Ludwig Muay Thai gym. And it's dope to have that as part of my legacy now, in that way. And I'm real proud that I was able to leave something that was lasting and meaningful to people that were coming up, because, that's what the dudes that helped me told me to do. They said, you get as good as you can, man. Be as healthy as you can. Curate yourself intellectually, emotionally, physically, and spiritually to the best of your ability, so that you can give something behind to people coming.
Yeah.
And those are the footprints I try to be conscious of and try to leave in the best way I can,
I do.
So that was kind of the fight. That was kind of my fight thing.
Yeah. So I kind of want to key on something you just said, man. Like, I've noticed that recently, and it's, I won't name any names, but I've just heard a lot of like talking heads and people that others listen to a lot and have a lot of respect for, that kind of shit on legacy. And for me, man, like, I think if you look at legacy as this selfish pursuit, then yeah, maybe it's not that important, right? But if you look at,
I want to have my name on the building type thing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And I think some people have this misnomer about, or this misinterpretation of what legacy is. And no, legacy is like, what did I do to serve that is lasting? Whether or not my name is attached to it, that's not the point of legacy.
That's right.
I really think deeply about this a lot because of all the people that I've led, and so I appreciate the fact that you talk about what your legacy was, because I think that a lot of people shit on it these days, and I think it's super important. I think you have to think about what your legacy is if you're going to do anything truly worthwhile. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think part of that, is like Eddie Bravo started 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, and he didn't put his name on it. He made 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. You know what I mean? And because it wasn't about Eddie, and he knew that it couldn't be about him because it had to be bigger than that. And I think inside of that, there's a bunch of people. I'm part of this outfit where there's a bunch of folks nobody's ever going to know their names, right? But there's a half dozen of us or something to get together and that have been around for some decades, and we know the shoulders of giants that we stand on, and we say their names, and it matters. It brings me to tears to think about it. You know what I mean? And I think that's the thing. There's a dude a long time ago, and he was interviewing me, and he says, "Oh, now you're a success. So what do you think about that?" I go, "Whoa." I go, "What's that mean?" Like, I don't know that I'm a success. Like, what? Like, we got to define that if we're going to talk about it. And he goes, "Well, what do you think success means?" And I thought about it for a minute, and I figured, like, I think it means that when I wasn't a very good bet, those people that helped me out, that they feel like they did a good job, that it was time well spent. You know what I mean? That they didn't waste their time. That's what I would like to think. I would like to think that those guys that helped me, those people that showed me that kind of kindness, didn't waste their time. And have I carried their kindness in a way that is admirable and honorable? And that's what I would think. And I think it's more like that. It's a personal thing. I know a lot of folks want accolades and attaboys and go, "Look what I did. Oh, I'm just showing people what I did so they could show them how to do it." Man, it's the internet. People know how to do stuff. People know how to, go ahead and walk that walk. And the demonstration of your principles in your walk will be a lot more important than whatever your palaver is about what you're doing or how important it is, you know. My thing with that gym, man, you know, I had a couple hundred people that are coming through there a day, and I was moving away. I was, you know, everything I'd done, you know, I'm bouncing so that I can feed my fight career, right? Because that's not paying anything. And so I'm bouncing so I can get good at this thing. And then when I get good enough at that thing, and then that thing is like intermittent, I'm doing bodyguard work so that I can get through that part of my life. And then I start this gym, and then I'm still doing bodyguard work, which I loathed at that time, to be able to pay the bills and turn the lights on and to be able to build a cage and put mats up and buy weights and like, and I'm funding it like that. And then, you know, it's all been kind of labors of love in that way. And so when I started moving away because I started working in the film business and I'm gone a lot. And so like I had to build a team of coaches that could carry the weight and that had a desire to. And inside of that is like, when I go, fuck, I'm not here anymore to do this. All I wanted to know was that I had good people in place, that those folks that were coming and showing up for that 10 years that they've been coming still had a place to go. That's all. I don't give a fuck what it's called. You know what I mean? It's like, I just want to know that my people are getting serviced and that's the right thing. That's the way, I think, you know. I'm not standing you know, if we're all on a river floating down and those are docks that are back here, I'm not servicing that dock anymore. I'm not the one. That wouldn't be healthy. And I think in this life, you got to let things go and change and alter, and then they can grow into somebody else's glory. Thank God, you know? I mean,
yeah, for sure, man. So how'd you find yourself in the film business, man? Did you start out with stunts, or like, maybe I read that somewhere. I don't fucking know, man. Is that accurate?
That could be a story. That you can make that into a true story.
Yeah.
I mean, you could. I mean, it's like there's a lot of different ways to look at it. So a lot of people look at it and they go, "Oh, he was just in this big show, and then he, you know, so that means that this just happened." You know, if people just see a thing that just happened, they're like, "Man, how fortunate for you that you just all of a sudden got a SAG award or what," you know. And so the way it happened for me, and it happens.
I'm not that guy. Trust me.
No. But like, I mean, you know, we look at things from outside and we're not sure. You know, I was working at a nightclub, and I had just started doing jiu-jitsu. I was doing stick fights then, and I'm working at the nightclub and I'm training every day. And Master P and all his guys walk in. Master P from No Limit Soldiers, No Limit Records, and No Limit Films. And so we got a prison out here in New Mexico that's they had big riot at, famous riot. There's a great book called The Devil's Butcher Shop that's about that riot, which is fucking awesome. But it's empty. It's a haunted prison now, right? And you can still see the marks in the floor where they took shovels to behead people, and all it's all that, right? There's dudes. I knew a dude that was locked up there. He was doing 20 years, and he says you'd see guys and they'd have a head on a broomstick, and they'd be walking through the catacombs underneath that were all flooded out, soaked in blood, the whole thing. It was like that. The National Guard came out the second day and they're like, "You guys got to stop this." And they brought a head out in a bag and dumped it on them. There's our negotiation. They go, "Holy shit, we need the FBI. We need somebody to sleep with. This is above our, you know." Anyways, so that prison is where they were doing a film. And me and a couple of my friends went out and tried out for that. So that's where I got a SAG card. And a SAG card is what allows you to participate as an actor or a stunt person in a film. And so I got this job as an actor on the film for the month. And I played a character called Snaz. And we did some fights, and we, you know, did a little fall off of the third tier of the, you know, of the prison cell, and the dude that was running it, he goes, "Hey man, you know, you move great, and you should come out to LA, dude." And this is like in 2000. He says, "You should come out. I got a guest house, and you can come stay with me." And I go, "Bro, that's fucking, I'm a kid from Michigan. I'm fucking work. I only got to work one job. Everybody else is working 2-3 jobs in Santa Fe to make it work. I got this one job. I'm doing this fighting thing. I like, thanks for the pipe dream, but I'm just going to chill. I'm good." And we left each other's lives and whatever. And I was like, "Oh, what a cool experience," you know?
Yeah.
Never thought about it again. I went down a whole nother road as an athlete. And then at that bodyguard, you know, and I'm running the gym, and I'm doing all the things, trying to keep it all going. I've retired from fighting in, I don't know, 2009 or 10. And a guy walks into my gym that's an X Games athlete, and he's a badass athlete. He moved great, wanted to learn jiu-jitsu. He's a big guy, so he's a lot of fun to roll with. So I spent a lot of time with him. After about 2 weeks, he goes, "I heard you had a SAG card." And I go, "Oh yeah, a while ago I worked on this film. I told him about it." And he goes, and he was a member of a group called Brand X Stunts. And Brand X is about 35 guys, maybe 40 guys now, and real high level stunt crew. Like they do all the best movies. Anyway, very highly regarded, respected guys. And he goes, "Well, that's that guy that ran that. He's one of the guys in my group." And I go, "Oh, you're in films too?" He goes, "Yeah, man." And they were shooting a film called Paul, about Simon Pegg film about a little alien that's getting drug across the Southwest in a motorhome. And he goes, "Well, you want to come? I got a couple parts on here you could probably play. There's a fight in a saloon, and then we got some tactical shit if you can use guns." I go, "Yeah, I can use guns." And so I worked for him, and his name was Darren Prescott. And so that's the way that I kind of go, "Oh man, maybe this is a thing I could do after fighting." The room got dark after I'm done fighting, and I'm doing this bodyguard work, trying to make this gym work. It's all hard, I got a high standard, which is expensive. And so I'm trying to run after the costs and all that shit. And he goes, "Hey, why don't you come out to Detroit and work on Red Dawn with me?" So then I went out to Red Dawn, and I go, "God, this could be really real. Maybe this could be a real life for me." Yeah. So I just started kind of running after stunt work at that time. And me being me, they go, "You're hard to hide. And so we'll go ahead and you're going to probably be a character, right?" And so then I just became, like their idea of like, who's the baddest dude that our main character could fight at the end? Like and I kind of became that character in a lot of these different films that came out then, and one after the next. And I get this job on Equalizer, and I go out to Boston, and I'm out there, and the guy running the show, I know it, but he doesn't know it. He's the same guy from Lockdown 12 years before or whatever.
Oh shit.
And so we're sitting having a hamburger at the bar later after the first day of work, and I meet Antoine Fuqua and shit. And I was just like, "This is crazy." It's like everything in my life about the film work. I'm like, "Oh my God." I mean, I've just been a wide-eyed kid about like Breaking Bad, like all this shit. It was beyond me. And I go, "You're the guy that gave me my SAG card back in the day." And he goes, "What?" And I go, "This show Lockdown." He goes, "Oh my God." And then me and Keith Willard's his name. And we've been great friends ever since. And that's kind of how the film business was like this, it's kind of like you're the strippers of the film business in the stunt world. It's just like all this brotherhood and pull people up and grab them. And if they're useful here, you can throw them in this spot and all that. And so I get, little spots here and there. And that's kind of how it kind of grew for me. And it's, everybody says, "Well, how can I get in the film business?"